Pride. One of the biggest tactics that the enemy uses to keep us stuck in our lives. We're going to look today at a man, Haman, and how he did not fight back these thoughts of pride. We're going to look at the destruction it caused him and everyone around him. So stay tuned. Welcome to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. If this is your first time, or if you've been here several times before, I'm so glad that you're back. We're in the middle of a series entitled Stuck. And in this series, we are analyzing the different tactics that the enemy uses to keep us stuck in our lives. We've looked at a lot of tactics so far: revenge, life comparisons, critical spirit, jealousy. And there's so many more that we haven't explored. But the common denominator between all of these tactics is there is one that precedes it, and that's pride. Pride is the predecessor to all of these tactics. And we see this in Haman's life. Haman's story is found in Esther chapters 3 through 8. Esther chapters 3 through 8. And Haman was the King Ahasuerus' right-hand man. King Ahasuerus was Esther's husband. This is when Esther was queen. And Haman was just promoted, and he was being paraded in the cities. The king really liked him, and he was being paraded, and there was one man who did not stand up to give him reverence, to respect his position. This man was Mordecai. Mordecai was a Jew, just like Esther. In fact, Mordecai raised Esther. Esther was a Jew also, and Mordecai raised her. He is Esther's cousin, and this happened before she became queen. And Mordecai did not like Haman. And Bible scholars seem to think that the reason that Mordecai did not stand up and to give him respect and reverence was that Haman was an Agagite. Now, if you remember, several hundred years earlier, when Israel had her first king, King Saul was fighting the Agagites in battle. The Agagites were the Israelites' enemy. And God told King Saul specific rules. I want you to eliminate everyone. And he obeyed, but he didn't obey 100%. He left some still living. And so Haman is a descendant of the Agagites, so of those that were still living from battle. So you can see 100 years later that there are still consequences. People are having to pay consequences. Innocent people are having to pay consequences for King Saul's disobedience. And so with Mordecai not standing up, Haman was furious about this. Everybody is standing up and paying respect to him except for this one man. Well, the Bible says that Haman was full of indignation. So we see that pride is leading to anger, and now anger is leading to revenge. Haman is going to get back at Mordecai, and how he does this is he secretly sneaks a law in which the king Ahasuerus has a stamp of approval on, and this law is to have this mass execution of the Jewish people. On a certain day, they are going to execute every Jewish man, every Jewish woman, every Jewish child. And so his revenge on one person, Mordecai, he's taking it out on his whole entire race, the Jewish race. And the Esther is actually devising a plan that Haman does not know about. And because Esther is on to what Haman has done, Mordecai is on to what Haman is really doing. But the king Ahasuerus is not, he's not in tune with what's going on. And so Esther throws this lavish banquet, and she only has 2 people there at the banquet. She has Haman, and she has her husband, King Ahasuerus. And when Haman goes home that night, he's getting on his horse, and on his way home, and as he's leaving the king's gate, Mordecai is sitting there and doesn't stand up again, doesn't pay him respect as he's passing by. And so we are going to look at the evening of when he's home. Haman is home with his wife, Zeresh, and their friends. And in this conversation that Haman has with his family and friends, we're going to see how pride really is manifested in Haman's life. There are 3 aspects of pride in this part of Haman's life. The first aspect of pride is that pride kills others' ability to enjoy their lives. When you read Esther chapter 5, verses 10 through 12, Haman is home with his wife and his family, his friends. And it's all about Haman. The conversation is all about him. He's bragging about, I'm so rich. I have wonderful children. I have a wonderful family. Life is good. And the conversation is not about his wife, Zeresh. It's not about his friends. The conversation is all about Haman. And you can just see how he's not only gloating and boasting about his life, but he's really boasting about what he's able to get away with so far. How he's able to fool his boss, King Ahasuerus. And so others around him, this just steals all the joy in their lives because it's all about Haman. The second thing about pride is that it kills our ability to enjoy life. We see this in Haman's own words in Esther chapter 5, verse 13. He tells his wife and his friends, life is good. Life is awesome. In fact, the queen just threw me a banquet. It was only for me and the king. I was the only one there with the king and queen. And I'm above all the princes. I'm above all of the governors. I am this and that. And he's just boasting. But then he says, and then that man, Mordecai, I saw him as I was leaving the banquet, and he did not stand up again and give me respect. That's what pride does. Pride, it's like this lens. We don't even realize it. It's like this lens over our eyes. And we view the world in light of me. The conversation is all about me. When I'm talking to others, it's all about me. When I'm looking out in the world, I'm looking at all of the injustices being done to me, all the unfairness being done to me, how I am being slighted. And this comes from Haman's own lips. Life is good, and pride is destroying his ability to enjoy his life because he is looking at it through a narrow, selfish lens that steals his joy. The third aspect about pride is that it leads to our destruction. We find this in Esther chapter 7, verse 10. After that second account that Haman sees Mordecai not standing, right after the banquet that Queen Esther threw him, and that second time that he sees Mordecai not standing, he already had a plan in place. He believed this foolproof plan. He had a law passed in which the king Ahasuerus had a stamp of approval on, and it was going to be this execution day of the whole entire Jewish race. And the plan was already in place. The law had already been passed. They were just awaiting for the day. And with him seeing Mordecai again, that the Bible said he was full of indignation, full of wrath. He is so consumed with that. He already has a plan in place. That's not enough. And so he builds gallows. He is wanting to put Mordecai himself in those gallows. He's wanting to see it. He's wanting to do it himself. And he believes this plan is foolproof, right? He hasn't had any hiccups so far. It's been smooth sailing. But King Ahasuerus finds out about the true man of Haman. He finds out from Esther and from Mordecai the true man of Haman, the man he was not perceiving himself to be. And his plan backfires. Esther and Mordecai were devising this plan to defend their people, to defend the mass murder of their race, the Jewish race. And Haman King Ahasuerus finds out about Haman, and Haman is put on those gallows, not Mordecai. Haman is executed, and his family is executed. So we see the end result of pride, his destruction and his family's destruction. So what if we look at this story and look at how Haman recognized that he had prideful thoughts and would fight back these thoughts? How would this story be different in Esther? There would be no conflict. This whole conflict was centered around one man's selfish, prideful thoughts. If he had recognized these prideful thoughts and fought back these prideful thoughts, then he would be able to see that he has a wonderful life. He was the king Ahasuerus' right-hand man. he had a really good life, and he lost it. He lost it. And his family lost their lives. So let us look at the story of Haman. As when we look at pride, we look at it as a lethal poison. It slowly kills. That slowly steals the joy out of our day-to-day life. Let us see prideful thoughts just as dangerous as the end result, our destruction. That is my spiritual food for you to munch on the rest of the week. I can't wait to see you next week.